Yo, it's the Feel Free podcast, back at it again. The only podcast that'll tell you to chase your dreams and call you out on all your bullshit, myself included. Got another good episode. I got my buddy Muncy back on the podcast to talk about some updates on his rap career. And also, we're talking sobriety, we're talking recovery, we're talking all of that good stuff that helps all of y'all chase your dreams or just live a happy, healthy life. So stick around for the rest of this episode. Stay tuned because I also got my buddy Todd Rennebaum from the Bunny Hugs podcast coming on in a couple weeks. So you'll want to check that episode out when it's dropping as well. So without further ado, let's get to the episode. Do you want to introduce yourself for the listeners who didn't have the opportunity to listen to your first episode?
Sure. Muncy. I am a MC from Michigan. Not from Detroit, from Commerce, but I've done a lot of shows out there. Everything seems to happen in the Detroit area, I suppose. I don't claim Detroit, though. I'm in recovery, and I rap about what I've experienced in my life, what I hope to experience, what inspires me, just sometimes pulling from my imagination. I love to rap. I'm a rapper's rapper. I love the art form, metaphors, similes, analogies, just rap, man. I really love it. I love the art form. I love the culture, and it's been my life's work. Up to this point, it's the only thing I've done in my life that I never wanted to stop doing. So that's a little bit about who I am and what I love to do. So I hope you guys enjoy this conversation and check out some of my music.
Hell yeah. I'm going to be dropping links to all your music and all your socials and all the posts too. I got a lot of good feedback. Everyone loved the previous episode we did. So Muncy 2.0 is going to be double the awesome,
John,
yeah, I like the sober activist part about it too, because in an industry that is heavily saturated with party culture, you're definitely a beacon for those out there that might listen to music for different reasons other than partying, and I respect it entirely because it's not easy to do it. So,
yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a time and place for all of it.
Of course. I mean, you still got songs that get hype, and, people can party to anything, but it's mostly
True.
The substance usage.
The glorifying and stuff that
right
happens in mainstream songs. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a bummer. Totally. So I wanted to have you back on. There's been a lot of big moves that you've been making the last couple months. I said I was going to get you back on even after the first time. There's a couple things that we wanted to talk about today. Obviously, everyone's here to feel free, and we're here to inspire people to chase their dreams, get healthy, and just love life to the fullest. However they're going to do that, I hope we inspire them to do it in any way, shape, or form. First thing I wanted to talk about, you had mentioned last time you were on here that you won some sort of competition to go down to Florida. What was that all about? Was that just
in a sense? Yeah, we could touch on that. I won a partial scholarship to go to this conference in Florida with musicians and individuals from different aspects of the industry, working in the sync world, which is getting music placed in TV and film. So there's sync advertisers and sync agents. There's producers there. There's Big Machine was there, record label agents, and a lot of talent scouts and a lot of talent. And really a lot of talent was what I noticed the most. A lot of people there who were also chasing their dreams, like-minded individuals who had a passion and drive for music. Obviously, if they're willing to travel across the country for it, that there was a special energy in the air there for sure, So I got to perform while I was down there. I got to see some other amazing performances, and it was really humbling, man. Because well, I think I did a great job with my performance. So did everyone else, and it's wild, like being in the presence of so much greatness. Everyone is just skilled in their own unique way, and they have a gift that they're sharing with the world that no one else has. At least that's what I saw there. And I'm not saying that's true for everyone that tries to be a musician, but a lot of these individuals that I saw there, they really have something, and it was cool to see that, and it was motivating, it was inspiring, and it was an experience, So I was grateful for that, and to meet the people I got to meet, and it just really, lifted me up, and got me to keep pushing at a time where maybe I was kind of like half-assing it. I was like halfway in, halfway out, like never all the way out, but you go through these phases where you're not giving like everything you got into what you love, because whatever is like challenges life is putting in front of you these roadblocks can kind of like hold you up, and then something happens that just sets you on fire again, and we all need
Right.
that. And whether that means traveling halfway across the country, or whether it means taking a walk, whatever that looks like, I think we all need those resets sometimes. And that's what this was for me, was a big reset. It reminded me how much I love this, how hard it is, really how hard it is to do this, but how much I love it and how much I want to do this, and how capable I am of doing it,
Right.
music, that is.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of music, yeah, as like
And
a
you,
profession.
I mean, it's a difficult hobby and profession to do. Not a lot of people do it, and I think to be surrounded by not even just creativity, but positivity. All these people meeting up to do something that isn't done a lot. I think that's, like you said, that recharge is necessary. We go through these moments where half in and half out, but you met a lot of people that did a lot of amazing things there, and it kind of revitalized you in order to get back on your horse, and keep at it. Now, did this play into your new album coming out, or was that mostly done? Did this help you get through to that?
It was mostly written. When I went out there, actually, one of the songs from the album is what I submitted for my entry to be considered for the scholarship, and they were like feeling it, and that was the God song, "Gift of Desperation," recovery inspired, spiritual based song, and it was originally intended to be the title track for the album. I've since then changed what the album is going to be called, but that is still the first track I released off of the album. And there's a cohesive, like, kind of gradual sound with the album. Every song kind of leads into the next, or at least has a similar vibe, taps
Right.
into the depths, so to say.
So this, so you originally were going to name the album "Gift of Desperation," and obviously,
Correct.
if you write that out, it's God. So is this mostly going to be like a spiritual album then? I mean, obviously you talk about like your feelings with life and everything. Is there a more specific message that you're trying to convey with that?
Well, I want to spread hope for sure, and but I don't want to shy away from the broken aspects either. So it's got this really melancholic feel to it with a lot of the songs, but also this uplifting element too. So it's not like sad boy shit. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's like motivating, because I feel like there's a lot of that in today's hip hop, and so it's got that element, but it's like, what are we doing about this? Like, this is what's going on. This is what we can do. I feel like it's an optimistic approach to life is what I'm sharing in this music, and it's not all super So I don't know. I don't want to say it's not all super deep, but like there are songs once we get to the other side of the project that are a little bit more I don't know, they where I let loose a bit more. And you know, the songs I've been releasing are very thought provoking, and while all the songs have that, I think toward the other side, there's just a different energy. I guess that was a very runaround way of just saying a different energy. It's a gradual shift, I suppose, you know, from like the darker side to a brighter, more aggressive, confident side, you know.
So, what is giving you this new change in energy now? This positive thing. A lot of your music has been very thought provoking, obviously, but from what you've told me and what I've heard on the singles, there's a different energy to this. Now, is there a reason why you're a little more, I don't know, positive? Why you have these answers and this confidence in the last 6 to 9 months or however long you've been working on this album compared to your other ones? Why is this one going to be different than the rest?
Great question. For one, I think I've went through a lot and in realizing why I make music. You know, comes a point in time where like you don't receive where I didn't receive the accolades or the validation that would ever be enough for me to be like, oh yeah, this is sick. Like I'm gonna keep doing this for that reason or whatever. Like I mean, of course, like validation feels good. That's something I certainly struggle with, you know, is like detaching from that. And I want the accolades. I want the plaques. I want the numbers, but none of it will ever, at least to this point in my life, none of it has ever felt like enough to really fuel me. So just being humbled by that and coming back to a place of like why I started doing this, and it was just tapping into like what's inside of me at any given time, like what I'm feeling, what I'm going through at that time, and just like letting it all out, you know, on the song. And that's what music has always been to. That's what my creative process has always been, to the very core, you know. And if it's not that, it's not me, to be honest. So sometimes that means happy, sometimes it doesn't. I always say one day I'll make happy music. It hasn't happened yet. Maybe I need to be like fully happy first, but I don't know. I've been like pretty happy or whatever, or content, I suppose. But and maybe that's showing in my music. I'm not sure, but I think that the world needs positivity too. Like we need light, we need hope, because we're just living in crazy times, man, and we don't have anyone really stand like. What do we really stand for? You know, I think it's important to ask ourselves again and again, because it might change. But like, what do I stand for today? I hope that my music represents that, you know, and I hope when people listen, they can see that and maybe ask themselves, what do I stand for? You know, so.
Right. I write it a lot in some of my journals, but the world needs more heroes, in my opinion. People that are going to stand up, like you said, that because we do live in, I'd say, troubling times, honestly. You know, aside from just instant gratification, addiction, you know, media being shoved down everybody's throats all the time. You know, the well-being of the human race is at this paradigm shift where we have to figure it out, you know, and nobody really knows how. So to have people like you and I who want to write about it for the sake of, damn, I hope like this helps somebody, you know. First, I'm going to help myself, and I hope that by helping myself, my journey can inspire somebody else to help themselves, you know. Because most of my heroes are all fictional, you know, just from all the anime I watch and stuff. But I'd like to see a lot more people standing up for what is right, you know. And like I said at the start of the whole thing, the whole being sober and being a rapper is very inspirational too. And yeah, yeah, and being proud of being sober too. Because I've met like a couple sober people who are not so happy about being sober anymore. But I'd
Yeah.
like to say that you definitely give off the energy that you're happy to be here and you're happy to be in control. I'd like to think that I'm there as well. So that's
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think definitely happy to be in control, but that's a double-edged sword too, because like I think sometimes the very core of my problem is wanting to be in control and not letting go. But I'm more in control now in my life than I ever was when I was in active addiction. So there's that.
right.
I guess I'm focused now, like what I can control, right? Like the Serenity Prayer or whatever. You know, uh, accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can. Like what is in my control, what is in my power to, and what things do I need to just like set aside? What like some things are not your acts. Um, it's just like let it be. There's so much in our control, in our scope of reality that we can shape. But I have a tendency to focus on things that aren't.
That aren't in your control.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Or things I know that aren't in my control, but I think I have the solutions in order to make them in my control. So
Yeah. Yeah, for
it's
sure.
it's ridiculous. So I understand completely. Uh, I I thought it was interesting when you were talking about like letting go and this whole. I've actually been reading a little bit of Taoism again. I studied Eastern philosophy for a little bit at college.
Sick.
I will be getting into Tai Chi classes hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So
Ooh.
I'm looking
Yo,
forward to
so
that.
a couple questions. Tai Chi isn't that like intentionally like putting yourself through pain to like endure more? Is that what Tai Chi, or
Uh,
is that like that's Chi? That's Chi. Okay, so Tai Chi is martial arts.
Tai Chi is a form of martial arts. It's actually
Okay.
described as moving meditation.
Ooh,
So,
nice.
uh, have you ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, the old Nickelodeon show?
I've been told to watch it, and I haven't delved into the anime realm yet.
Really, really good show. Wouldn't consider it an anime. It's obviously still a kid show. Won a lot of awards for having adult themes and questions in a children's show. So I highly recommend it. And
Okay.
one of the forms of element bending, so it's a show kind of like magic. The water benders that kind of use water as magic, they use a form of they're based on Tai Chi. So all of their
Nice.
movements are like martial arts based. Um, and I've just been doing like research, and I really wanted to get another side to my physical wellness other than just basketball and lifting. You know, something to help with
Yeah,
my
for sure.
flexibility. And
That makes sense.
I I wanted to talk more about that after I had asked you about your physical wellness journey. So one of the points I was going to make about this new album, new energy, it's positive, you got answers, you got confidence. Does this have anything to do with taking your physical wellness journey seriously in the last half a year?
I would say it has to, man. Well, and here's why. Because, like I said about my process, it's when I get that creative spark, right, and I'm feeling like I want to let out what's inside of me. Well, what's inside of me is different based on what I'm doing in my life. So, if I'm just on bullshit all the time, I'm not really going to have a whole lot of inspiration or profound words to drop on the mic. And the more in my life that I'm doing, what I consider to be profound, the more profound my words and my music will be. And like anything that I do, anything in like the social realm or the creative realm, my impact will be more profound based on what I'm doing when no one's watching.
Ah,
When it's just me, and I like those moments where you have like a split second decision. Sometimes you get to do something. I like how our good friend Brandon calls it like his higher self or his lower self.
right.
Which one is like running the show at which time. I think the more that we can do things from our higher self, the more that radiates, you know, in the world around us, and like also comes back, you know. And so I'm not saying I do it perfectly, but I do. I am. I'm happy with the progress I've made in these past, really the past year. I feel much more content, much happier now than I was probably a year ago. You know, I went through these huge ups and downs in recovery. People talk about recovery being like this like straight line, right? Some people are like, oh yeah, on drugs, I was like up and down, and like I'm like that now, like up and down. Maybe with drugs and alcohol, I was like, you know what I mean? Like the ups and downs were too
Too extreme.
dramatic, but
Yeah.
but I still love those, and those are what to me give life meaning. And I don't want to be just like a straight line all the time, but I also don't want to be a basket case, you know. So I still go through these ups and downs. I'm not just like happy, joyous, and free all of the time, but I suppose what I've experienced in the past year would be contributing to the music, you know, and to what I'm writing, and this, you know, the new approach of doing things I don't always want to do, you know, and the consistency, like you said, with certain things, fitness being one of them. I don't know, it just like calluses your mind a little bit, you know, and you never know when you're gonna get that return on investment of like that's you investing, right? Like you do these things, you don't see an immediate return, you have no idea what it's for. You have this intuition that it's going to be good and it's going to help you, but you're exhausted from it, you're tired. It kills your motivation to do other things because you're putting energy into things that you're not getting a return on right away. And then when it comes when you least expect it, you know? And then you start to see it happen in your life. Like now you got your office space, you got your new apartment. Like you start to see these things happen and you're like, oh, this is because like I started doing something like way back at this time. And now it's like starting to pay off. So if I keep that mindset and know that I can do something today and I might not see anything for it for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or it could be in 2 months. I guess doing something and not expecting what you might receive has a power to it, and I try to practice that.
Just doing it solely just to do it. Almost
Well, you
because
you hope to get something back, right? But
right.
that you can't like wait for that and be like, oh, like I'm not getting anything for this, I'm just gonna give up. You know, if I did that, I would have stopped making music like so long ago. I
Of
would have,
course.
you know, like I I would have stopped working out because like your body doesn't change in a day, you know. And not to say like I work out to feel good, right? To feel free. But like I also want to look good or whatever, you know. Like I think everyone does. So, but that can't be the sole motivator, right? Because if it is, you're gonna get frustrated and you're gonna give up, or you're just gonna be like very vain and it's gonna like run the show. Your ego's gonna run the show, you know.
And that's a dangerous thing.
It is.
Pride. I'd like to think, I was looking up definitions of the ego, but before I actually get into starving the ego, like what we want to do, one of your reels, or it was a reel for one of your songs that I saw on Instagram, and one of your bars had mentioned that you thought that all your problems were going to be solved when you got sober, right? Or like getting sober and like
Oh yeah.
I thought things were going to get easier, right? And I thought the same thing. And it comes back to this whole like, return on the things we're doing, right? And it gets discouraging when you don't see a return on your sobriety immediately, right? You're like, well, I've done good for these 3 to 6 months. Why isn't my life completely fixed, right? And it's like, well, you spent the last 8 years fucking your life up. So how are you gonna fix it in 3 to 6 months, And then even after a year, and I'm on my second year sober, and I'm still having these, not like doubts, but just this unease. I'm like, damn, like I got 2 years of hard sobriety work. Like, why am I still struggling with these problems that I thought at the start of my recovery process? I'm like, I'm going to have this shit figured out, and I still don't, right? Because like you said, it's not linear. It's these friggin' ups and downs all the time. We get discouraged. So when I saw that reel you put on Instagram, I'm like, fuck, I totally thought I was going to have it all figured out just by getting sober. And here I am still learning, you know?
Yeah, it's the Four Walls song. Thought when I got sober everything would come together, but I'm starting to think when it come together it's like never. Terrified what's inside of me, paralyzing anxiety, barely fine, but I try to be rarely finding the time to see. So that is yeah, man, I guess it's just we didn't even know how fucked up we were when we were in active addiction. We didn't know we really needed to change. I mean, maybe eventually, right? We were like, oh, this isn't like the best me. Like I could be doing something different. But you don't see like things appear as problems now, like hills we have to climb that we didn't even see the hills before. You know, so it's like walking through life with blinders on, right? Like you don't even know what needs to happen. So it doesn't feel like weight on your shoulders because you can just like pick up the bottle or like, you know, whatever your vice is, you can like go to that and it becomes this instinctual thing. You do it before even noticing what's going on up here. You know, at least that was true for me. And it, even aside from drugs and alcohol, it can appear today in behaviors and stuff. And like, I catch it or whatever, but sometimes it's after the fact. And I guess that's how people relapse, right? You know? Right. But for me, it's just like, I don't know why for me, it's just like a hard no. Like I know people say like, once an addict, always an addict, and I believe that. I have no shame in identifying as an addict. I do feel like that is who I am. It's part of my makeup. But I don't where was I going with this? I don't have any problem identifying as an addict, but yeah, help me out here. Where was I?
We were talking about having it all figured out because we got sober, I think. But that was the start of it.
I don't even know, but we're here now. I think I got my point across. I was probably just trying to really zero in on it.
Hammer it
That's
home.
Been happening lately. Sometimes I'll just blank.
You know, I think we just think too fast is the thing. I know.
I'll chalk it up to that.
I think you got it. I think you got it through to him, though. And so we thought that all this problems were going to be solved with sobriety, and it actually brought different problems that we needed to solve, and these habits that we were rewiring ourselves to do in our struggles. Right now, you catch yourself, you said, when you're doing a behavior that you know is probably going to lead to a negative outcome, right? Or once an addict, always an addict type of thing. And I believe that too, you know. I still
That's where I was gonna go. Let me just interrupt you real quick. I'm sorry. Don't lose your train of thought. Yeah, I don't feel like I'm gonna use or anything. Like that's not like I'm not like worried about a relapse. You know, that's just what I was gonna spit out. Is for me it like shows up in other ways, but I don't ever have that like concern that that's gonna happen. And I think maybe a lot of people do. I don't know why. I don't. You know, I feel like I have a lot to live for or whatever. But that's it.
I mean, there's just like a couple things. I'm right there with you. There's a couple things that I know I could never do again. Like I can't drink. Like it's just out of the question, you know. Like I can't do cocaine. I can't smoke weed. I can't do like mind-altering substances. I just can't, you know. Like I won't. I don't need to
enjoy it, right? Like you can't. Yeah, don't, like we don't get to enjoy it anymore.
No, we don't. Like I ruined that for myself, you know, because I took, you know, and before I was getting sober, it was funny because people always do the whole like, oh, why don't you just moderate it? And I'm like, I hate that word, you know, or I just hate that I don't understand.
I do nothing in moderation.
I know. There's no throttle for me. It was all or nothing. So the same pleasure that people get from using things, I'm not saying that I don't have that pleasure from using. It was just I had rewired my pain to always rear its head when I used. No matter what substance I did that was altering my mind or my body, it was always connected to my shame and my pain.
So it overrides the pleasure. Like you feel good, like in a chemical sense, but the spiritual aspect of it is like override like you're a piece of shit. Like that's what
Yes.
like
Yeah.
happened
Yeah.
in my head, you know?
And it was funny because I had my friend Jackie on a couple weeks ago, and we were talking after the podcast, and we were talking about this, and she goes, "Yeah, I know when you were like trying to get sober, those like the 6 months before I like tried to get sober, she could tell every day when I would come to hang out if I had broken my day counter or not, because I would walk into the whatever room my homies were chilling in, and she could just like see it on my face. Like I was just so ashamed, like there was no pleasure for me at that point. It was all, I was just disappointed in myself, So there was no, I had to rewire myself in order to love life without all that pain. Like the pain's still there. It'll always be there. And it gives you and I, as far as I think, inspiration to continue to write and to continue to live like this. We just don't need to get fucked up in order to do it.
Yeah, it's definitely the road less traveled, and it is harder sometimes, like tapping into what's inside of you. Like you don't have that like shortcut, right? And that's why, I don't know, I think it's a myth that people say when you like people that get sober or clean, their like art falls through the cracks. I mean, it's obviously not true, but I understand where it comes from, because it's easier to give up, and it's easier to just be like, wow, like maybe I don't got it anymore. Like I'm sure people have those thoughts and they just give in to them and their art changes.
I think it happens whenever they don't change how they approach art. They give up, like at the start of it, like I didn't feel creative at all in my recovery. I'm like, fuck, I've been writing about being a piece of shit for 8 years. How am I supposed to write about being positive now? Like I had no fucking idea, And to any artist who dealt with, like you said, they get sober and their art changes, or they think it gets worse. It's like you just have to approach it differently, and it's not easy. It took a while. I'm almost 4 years sober, and watching my art change in these last 4 years has been, I'm so grateful for it. It's such a beautiful thing,
Yeah, definitely. And you've changed, you're right. So I think that's part of it too, is maybe like people don't change in the way that would allow their art to just blossom,
to change with
upon
them.
Like putting down the substances and the, changing the behaviors and stuff.
Right. And before we still get on to that next topic, that the book that you read and the book that I wrote was actually like yeah, there we go, parables. Yeah, is actually my writing that had happened during that entire process that we just talked about. The whole not being able to write, being creative, writing about all this stuff. Those writings spanned over a course of probably like 5 years, I think, before I compiled it all into that book. So there's a different John in each one of those pages. I'd like to think.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Love that. It's really, really good, dude. Well, now that we're talking about the book, I have some highlights, dude. Here's one. The purpose of life is to make the best of what you have. I'm no longer a victim of my addictions. They are now a strength, not a weakness. And this goes back to like the people you mentioned who are like sober but like don't want to be sober. They think it's not cool or something. Like I think like embrace it, bro. Like this is a power and a strength. This is a source of power that not everyone has, right? And people recognize it as a weakness. And I'm really grateful that shift happened in me where I recognize it as a strength. And I guess there's still like maybe it's the side of me that cares about like image and reputation, that maybe I'm like, I pump the brakes sometimes on like sharing as much as I intuitively want to about recovery and stuff, like the nitty gritty, the details and stuff about like, maybe not everyone needs to know that. Maybe there's discretion there. And that's something I'm still working through, like how transparent can I be with the world who some of you won't understand me, and maybe that's not my business who understands me and who doesn't. Maybe I just need to like lay it all out, you know, and that's kind of where I'm at. And so it's been a conflict, an ongoing conflict in me. And so that line just really spoke to me because I know it's a strength, but I know not everyone else sees it that way. So I'm like hesitant on like, you know what I mean? Like how I approach it
Of course.
as like an artist or whatever,
Yeah.
public figure. I don't know.
But you realize that so deep down you do believe it's a strength, even if you're
I
gonna,
do, for sure.
yeah, and even if I'm still coming to terms with the whole public figure thing and laying it all bare. For me to lay it all bare, I had to write a book about it, and I talk a little bit about it on my podcast. I actually spoke on a podcast, the Bunny Hugs and Mental Health podcast, and he asked me some very personal questions. Like, my friends and family know what happened when I went through my psychosis between the ages of 19 and 21 from my drugs and stuff. Like, people who know me know that. But now it's like on the internet for people, or like how you said you pump the brakes when am I supposed to share this? Or do people think like it's not supposed to be a strength? And I just realized, man, if I just lay it all bare out there, I feel like I'm going to be helping people more than they're going to be judging me, know?
That hits home, man, because you're doing the work, bro. You're doing the work, and it's like, who gives a fuck, at
Right.
that point? Like, if someone doesn't like me, like, my principles are in line with, like, my actions are in line with my principles, right? So what wrong could I do? That's
Right.
what Brandon says too.
Of course. And I think you're right there too. It's like we're literally doing things in order to help people. So anybody who's really going to judge us in a negative way for that are like, it's just baseless. It's like, why you're being a hater, And I don't call people haters, maybe sometimes I do, but they're fucking hating right now, Like, shit. It's crazy when you try.
It's bound to happen, right? Like, it's bound to happen. The more you put out to, the more you put yourself out to the world. I think something we will have to get familiar with is, like, how do we still lead with love? And Lori, my fiance, has been helping me with this too. Like, navigate when someone does really, like, throw a low blow at you, like in the public space, someone drops a comment that just, like, they're really trying to get under your skin. Like, wow, like you need to do this different. Like, you suck. Maybe if you tried this, you'd be better. And, like, how to, like, not internalize that, but also, like, not be passive. And, like, how do you respond to hate in the world in an assertive way that's, like, assertive but loving? Like, hey, yeah, like, it's like, what would you say? And, I mean, to turn it around so that person, because what they're what they're experiencing when they say something like that, right? If someone is hating you, like, there's something going on, like, something you said, like spoke to them somewhere they're not willing to, like, look at yet, or whatever. And so it's really never something that's going on with you,
right? In those instances, it's usually like you can either try and be the nicest person possible and then say thank you at the end, or the other option is to troll, the other option is to troll them and make a joke out of it, Because
but then that reinforces them feeling like, oh, fuck you, Whereas, like, if can you say something to actually, like, win them over, I guess, and that, you can't win everyone over, but versus just, like, leaving it alone and letting people say what they want about you. I guess it's situational.
It's tough online. It's tough online.
Yeah.
That's the problem, because we're putting words out there without any any emotion, any behavior, anything. It's just like words, and we're supposed to try and read emotion. So everything gets, all discombobulated in our understanding of each other. So I haven't had to deal with too many haters on the public server for what I'm doing right now yet. I can imagine that once this gets out there, though, like, people are going to start taking some of the statements I've made in my earlier episodes and paint me as a heathen, which is all right. It's whatever. I'm still just going to keep doing this, fuck it. Right.
Keep going always, no matter what anyone says. There's another line in your book. My guilt is spawned from shame. I'm so ashamed of my actions that I feel I need to do what people ask of me, even if it costs me my free time. I feel overwhelmed, which keeps me from relaxing. But that isn't fair to me. I'll run myself into the ground trying to please everyone. Um, that spoke to me too. Uh, I guess it's like the people pleasing nature of maybe like being an addict like reinforces it, right? Like you want to be like you're a good person, you want to take care of people, and even at your own expense. Even in like the wellness journey, like because you know that giving like feeds the soul, right? But it's got to be a balance, and I just don't think a whole lot about it. If something comes up and people ask me, or something seems to be like what needs to happen, I'll just like do it and then
Right.
think about it later. I don't know what I'm saying. Well, I do. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, you wrote it, so.
yeah. See, I've almost felt ashamed. I felt ashamed because I became an addict, and I felt that it was a very selfish endeavor of me to put all of my time and money into getting fucked up, right? And even though
Yeah.
everybody who stayed by my side through it, who love and care for me, so I felt that I did them dirty by fucking my life up when they believed that I could live a good life. So as I'm going through my sobriety and stuff, when people ask me for things or ask me to do things like favors and stuff like that, I almost felt obligated to say yes. Or hanging out with people, friends and family, I felt obligated because I'm like, these people wanted to hang out with me during the times when I was fucking around. So I owe it to them almost, to spend this
there's
time
this
with
like
them.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's like this deep-seated thing for me too that like if I say yes, I'm like a better person, and if I say no, then it makes me, you know what I mean? There's like, I know that's not real, it's not valid, but
Right.
it's what I feel at those times. It's like, ooh, I'm letting someone down, like, and then like you feel like you're letting someone down, and it reinforces like all the shame you felt in your entire life of being an addict and letting
Right.
people down, and it's like just for saying like, no, you don't want to, go to Starbucks today, or like you
Or
don't want
no,
to go
you,
bowling or whatever it is. I don't know.
yeah.
That I
But
don't
it,
go bowling, but I do go to Starbucks. You know what I'm saying?
right. So I actually had a stress and burnout coach on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and we talked a little bit about the art of saying no and why that's good for you, because otherwise, like we said, you're going to lead to burnout. You're going to just get fucking tired saying yes to everything, saying yes to helping everyone, and even like maybe working yourself too ragged. If you literally say yes to filling your time completely, then how the fuck are you supposed to relax, So sometimes I just got to
Yeah, I
say,
get that.
yeah.
That's
Sometimes,
true. I think it's a slippery slope because like then you get like you don't want to get in the habit of saying no either,
because then
right?
you're not
Because
living
like
anymore.
yeah, like then am I just saying no to everything? Because I've been in that space before too, and it's
Right.
like, wait, what do I actually want to do?
Right. Like, wait, am I just like a fucking loaf of bread on the couch right now? I've literally said no to everything. So yeah, it's all about balance. Fuck,
Yeah, balance. It's important.
Did you have anything else
Sure.
that highlighted or
I do. It's like yeah, the vicious cycle of addiction led to the deterioration of my convictions. Wow, dude.
shit.
Yeah. So, holy shit. Because being a stimulants being my addiction, right?
Same
Stimulants.
here.
I think
Yep.
whatever someone's drug of choice or drug of no choice is, it maybe I know it's true for me that it allowed me to tap into like my creative process and like what I actually want to like the messages I want to convey and what I want to get across so clearly, with so much clarity. And but so I would write it, and I would be able to write it like what I thought was so well or whatever. It felt like so clear to me, but then I couldn't say it right. Like I had no conviction. Like as a rapper, I couldn't say it with conviction. Like maybe I just didn't feel it anymore after I wrote it. Like I
Right.
wrote it and then it was out there and I couldn't like tap back into that. Weird, dude. Like yeah, like you feel something so strongly and then it's just like gone like that when I don't know. There's something about that like saying things and doing things with conviction that sobriety has given me.
Giving us
That I don't know if I
back.
ever had. I certainly didn't have it in addiction. Or I certainly lost. Like I remember losing it like gradually, like more and more. Like I would always write, and I wouldn't put anything out. I wouldn't execute. I wouldn't execute anything. I would just write and write and write and get my feelings out. It was really yeah, pathetic, dude, honestly. You know?
It was a phase, we can always look back and say how pathetic we were back then, which we were, but sobriety has given us that conviction, that ability to take all those things that we've written and actually live it. I'm executing the way that I knew from the start I was supposed to be living this way, even before I started using. Even in high school, in grade school, when we don't really know who we are yet, and then we go through this phase of trying to find yourself and all this stuff. I can honestly say that with conviction, I know who I am right now. I know what I'm about. I know what I write, and I know what I stand for. And everybody who's read my book or who listens to my podcast and who's in my life, they know what I'm about right now, So there is no non-execution. Granted, at the start of this podcast, you're like, yeah, sometimes we go through these phases where we're half in, half out. That happens with fucking life, but we're never all the way out, like you said, right?
Yeah, and you're happy for people to hear the work you're doing too, because you're proud of it. And there's I don't know, before I felt like, I don't know, just I didn't want to share, I didn't feel like I could share anything with anyone. Who would want to hear this? You just weren't I wasn't walking the walk,
Right. But we are now. Yeah. So we're here to I'm here to inspire people that are doing the same thing that we did back then. Just keep working at it. If deep down you're not walking the walk, there are certain things you need to do in order to do so. In order for us to walk the walk, we had to get sober. That was the first preliminary condition in order for me to start living the life I truly wanted to live. And it took me 8 years to get sober, It ain't fucking easy, but we figured it out. And then, like we talked about before, getting sober doesn't solve all your problems. So now you got a whole list of other problems. But I'd like to tell people, even if you're not dealing with addiction like us, I'd like to say heavy addiction, right? If there's certain things you need to do in order to execute and live life with conviction, you got to do them. If you got to get healthy physically, emotionally, or mentally, there's the steps you need to take, right? So just got to be real with yourself. And I'm going to segue into the next point. For those that think they don't need any help, that is the ego telling you that.
That's the ego.
That is the ego telling you that nothing's wrong, you're in the right all the time, and you don't need any help. So, how do we starve the ego, Mr. Muncy?
That's a $1 million question, man. I'm trying to figure it out myself. I think we can't rest on our laurels. We have to continue. There's no end point to the work that we're doing. There needs to be a purpose, and we need to identify what our purpose is. It's okay if we don't know what it is. I feel like I know what mine is, but it's something we need to continue living out through our actions, and we need to be able to block out the noise and not get hung up on things that we've already done, right? So I don't know, making a podcast episode, you're not going to listen to it 50 times, right? That would be the ego. If I make a song, I need to listen to it. I actually need to listen to it enough times to know that it's right and that it's good to put out to the world. But I need to be able to wear that hat as long as I need to, and then I need to be able to take it off when the time is right. Right. Same with writing. Each part of your process plays a significant role, but it needs to stay in its lane, right? And uploading something, we don't need to go see who's watching all the time, who's saying what about it. It's important. Yeah. We need to know the analytics, and we need to engage with people in the ways, the tools that we have at our disposal to connect with people. I don't know why it's so hard to connect with people through these systems, but that's what it's there for, is to connect with people, to me, for what I'm doing. And so I need to remember that. And if I'm going to use these tools, which is what I would like to identify them as, they need to be just that, you know? And that's just one aspect of it. As a creative, though, I think like this can be true for everyone, no matter what they do, whether they're creative people, whether they're more left brain. Just continue doing the work. Don't get hung up. The celebration phase needs to be minimal, I think, for anyone. Like, reward yourself for sure. But I don't know. What are your thoughts, man? I'm struggling with it, to tell you the truth. I know that my work comes from my soul, but like, the reason I'm not more productive and I'm not doing more work is because I get in my own way.
Right. So there's actually a couple things that I had thought about and I had wrote when you told me this on the phone a couple weeks ago. So first, I'm going to give the textbook definition of the ego. So an ego is a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance, right? Now, and then there's another definition for psychoanalysis. The part of the mind that mediates between the conscious and the unconscious and is responsible for reality testing and a sense of personal identity. So those are the textbook definitions. I have my own definition of the ego, and for me, I just view it as almost the evil side of everyone's pride. Now, pride is one of the 7 deadly sins, but there are 7 deadly sins and there are also 7 heavenly sins, in my opinion. I believe that everything has 2 sides, and I just don't, I'm not some Buddhist monk sitting on a mountain that has no sin and no pride and no nothing, like, it's okay to be proud of your accomplishments, right? Like, I'm proud of the fact I've beaten addiction, that's something to be proud of. And I think that starving that ego, now getting too big for my britches, is how you relapse. And it's like, well, I was, adept enough to get sober. If I use because I've worked hard enough, I can get sober again. That would be pride speaking, right? And that's not necessary. To always be checking the views or the comments and stuff, like you said, like who's watching and all this stuff, like what are they saying about the things I've done? Like, it's just almost so unnecessary, like, to try and like just keep working towards being yourself without pride is enjoyment to me, and I can see why you get set back. I get set back too. And the other point I was going to make is, in an industry where everyone is talking about how they're the shit, right? Which is literally rap, in one way or another, everyone is the fucking best. Everyone's the shit, right? And it's dangerous, but here's the thing. It's almost like, here's the thing with rap. It's like a battle arena for gladiators with words, and everyone's just duking it out in this arena. Like, I'm the fucking best, so like, if you don't puff up your chest a little bit, you're going to get knocked the fuck over, right?
Yeah. So that brings me to a point, and it reminded me of this when you read the textbook definitions or whatever. Like, we can't exist without our ego. Like, we do need our ego. We can't exist without it. It's always going to play a role. It's always going to be present to some extent, but like, we can't let it run the show, right? It can't be the driving force, like, it's a slippery slope for me, man. Like, I don't know. I feel like I have a good idea of which side of the line I'm riding on. But I can, like, it's a wobbly walk. Like, I don't know.
You're conscious of it though, it's like, it's dangerous to get. It'd be dangerous if you didn't have that self-awareness, because then you get people who literally live and breathe on hubris and pride, and that's detrimental to other people, and
maybe your ego exists at some times to like, for that assertive, like let's talk about assertiveness, for example, to keep other people who are acting out of pure pride, like in check sometimes, you know, like
I,
sometimes the universe is relying on you to like play your role, be like, hey, no, that's like, nah, like listen, you know, or whatever. I don't know.
I think it's also to protect you, though, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like in the
Mm-hmm.
definition, it's like a sense of self-identity. It's okay to have that self-identity, you know? Like, if you didn't have that sense of self-identity, then every person that you met that told you something about yourself, you're like, they're totally right. I'm going to take that. You know, everybody's
And
like,
would we even feel like a piece of shit for like our addictions and stuff if it weren't for the ego? Like if it's what makes us feel so great about ourselves, isn't it what makes us feel like awful about ourselves too?
right. Well, I think it's completely separate of who we actually are. It's just kind of like the
Mm.
voice. It's just this really loud voice in our head sometimes that really think it knows everything. It knows everything about you. It knows everything about the people you surround yourself with. And it's just dangerous. Like I said, it's a seven heavenly and a seven deadly sin. The ego can be used to protect yourself. It can also give you a form of identity. It also, in my own opinion, it's the part of me that thinks I don't need anybody's help.
Mm.
And that's not true because we're all human and we're all fucking in this together, you know? And in my times of intense pride and hubris, I felt I had it all figured out and I don't need anybody's help and I'm going to do this myself and everybody can fuck off in the process, you know? And how dangerous is that, you know? And it was. And
For sure,
also,
because we're social creatures, you know.
right. And also, like you said, well, are we still going to feel ashamed of doing the drugs when we were in active addiction because the ego gave me the idea that I'm in the right for doing all these drugs, you know? And the other side of the ego was telling me I can fix it without anybody's help too. So it's like, yeah, we're in the
Mm.
right for doing all these drugs. And then when I wanted to get sober, it's like, yeah, we're in the right for thinking we could do it by ourselves too, which isn't true, you know?
Right.
I think it's how you channel it that could be healthy.
Yeah. Well put.
Or not channeling it could be healthy. It's
Yeah.
just a
Sometimes we just need to keep it in its place, you know. Keep it where it
right.
belongs. Sometimes it doesn't need to come out, but
So how do you keep it at
how do you keep
the
it at bay?
how do you keep it at bay? How do you keep the ego at bay?
I think doing work that matters. Doing work that matters. Valuing other people. Like I think so in the fellowship that I'm in, you know, service work is valued. It's important. It's you know, giving back is how I keep what I have. So to say, and it gets me outside of myself. So something like going to a meeting and making coffee once a week, which I'm not currently doing, um, but something like that. It could be something, and for anyone, it could be something as simple as holding the door for someone. But it's really tricky because that's like, oh, like I want you to know I held the door for you. Like, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
right,
Like
right.
that's ego is so slick, dude. Like, you
It
know, you
just
see someone come in and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna hold the door, and like if you don't say thank you, then like fuck you, you're an asshole. You know, like I think like so the nature of like the service that we do, I think is important too, because is it something that will allow us the space to actually work and not like not feed we're not feeding our ego at those times, you know. And if we are, it's not paramount to what the work we're doing for our soul, right? So the ego is like we're leaving it like a trail of like we're leaving it a trail of food or something for feeding it, right? But it's not front and center stage. Like our soul is, we're like pumping it with IVs and like, you know, we're pumping it with IVs, we're lotioning it, we're hooking our soul up, dude. And then our ego is just like, we're like trailing along. We're like, yeah, come on, like you're staying with us too. Like we need you too, but like, you know, you want to run the show, and we can't let you do that right now. So like, here, just keep, you know,
well,
follow along. Oh, something like that.
I feel like the ego is just looking for recognition. the
Yeah,
whole
like, hey,
time.
what about me, guys? Yo, like, yo,
I'm still here.
don't you see? Don't you see what I'm doing? Like, hey.
Like, give me the credit I deserve.
Exactly, and doing things, and that reflects in all of our work, doing things with no expectation for credit or recognition, which really, that barely exists in today's world. Like, that very thing is so hard to come across, and it's so hard to even do, because we are like, dude, everywhere we turn, someone's gonna give us some sort of validation, or we're gonna like do something and we're gonna receive something for it. And so how do you do that work? What does that work look like? I think it's different for everyone, but there are places, like, I know Brandon volunteers every Saturday at like a soup kitchen, and no one knows who he is there. Like, no one knows his name. Like, maybe they know his name. Like, hey, like, he probably says
Right.
like, hey, I'm Brandon or whatever, but he's not going there to like take pictures and like post
Right.
online like, oh, look at me, I'm doing volunteer work. Like, no, it's not fucking about that. He doesn't give
Yeah.
a shit about that. He's going and he's doing like what I would call God's work. And I think that is that's what feeds the soul. That's what starves the ego and feeds the soul. And then it can keep our ego at bay and allow it to do what it needs to do in our life.
Yeah. Well, I think to have that, having the identity is okay. I'm gonna wake up and I'm John, right? But I'm not gonna do
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
I'm not gonna do things so John gets praised. Like you said, he goes to the soup kitchen. He's not taking pictures and shit like that. And I think in the day and age with technology, and I talk a lot about technology on the Feel Free podcast and how I don't like it, and everybody's doing it for all recognition. I'm going to take pictures and videos of all the good things I'm doing so people tell me, wow, you're doing such good things. Like, that's fucking stupid. You're literally defeating the purpose
Guilty.
of doing it. Yeah, I mean, like, for a public figure, you have to, like, show your following that you're doing these things. Otherwise, nobody knows who you are anymore, And it's such a slippery slope and a fine line between trying to be a public figure who really wants to help people emotionally and mentally, like, find their true selves, and then, like, you're literally dabbling in the ego. You're literally dabbling in the things that could fucking destroy you, which is why it took me so long to, like, get all these social medias and shit going, because that was the only thing that prohibited me from even putting out my first song or doing a podcast or things like that. Like, I've despised social media because it just oozes pride to me. And vanity. It's just so vain all the time for no fucking reason, And to walk that fine line, like you said, because like I said, you are in an industry where it's all pride, and I think you fighting with your ego and being self-aware of it is going to make you stronger. It's going to make your words stronger from your soul. It's going to make your story stronger. So I think you've got it figured out. You might feel like you're taking hits in the corner of a boxing ring, but I think you're getting there, So I wouldn't trip about it.
Word. Getting there.
I'm right there. I'm right there with you. It's almost like walking a tightrope. It's shaky. But I think in order to, like you said, starve the ego, we have to do things for people without recognition. And I think even doing things for ourselves, like self-care and stuff, is good for the soul, Physical wellness, emotional wellness, like having all your ducks in a row. And then once you have all your ducks in a row, giving back to the people who might be down, I think that's good. And I think revisiting your past is good because it's humbling. Humility is obviously the antidote to pride, in my opinion, realizing that we're just average. We're just another human like everyone else trying to live their best life. I'm not so special that I'm above everybody else's problems. We all have the same problems, right? So
yeah, like we're all so special, but we're all not special at all
at the same
but we're
time.
all, yeah, for sure.
And it's tough to come to that conclusion too. Like I said, we don't want to ask for help, but sometimes I need help understanding that I'm just another dude. I'm just a dude with a microphone, Like, what the fuck? There are people who don't have microphones and people who do have microphones, and I'm just another guy, you know?
But you're living your purpose, man. And
That's
I
it.
think you had to go through a lot to do that. So it's cool
You
to
too.
see.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So telling people, you go out there and do some good things and don't videotape it. Go out and just be like our friend Brandon. Go to the soup kitchen and just do things and don't put it on Instagram. How about that?
Yeah, sounds good. That's what he said.
Right. So I am going to say this. You have a single that's dropping. You can pre-order it on DistroKid. It's
You can pre-save it on DistroKid.
Right.
Yep.
And it's
It's
available.
called All on Me.
It's all on me. It's available on May 14th. So you have an entire week to pre-save this single. And, you know, if you've stayed for the entire episode, you're pretty much liable now to pre-save the single as well. So you have to if you've listened to the whole episode. I'm telling all my listeners they have to. So
Let's go. You guys won't be disappointed, I promise. That's my ego and my soul talking. You're going to like this one.
And I will put a link in the description for all of those people who can't find it. So I'll hook it up. So we talked a lot today. Got the new album coming out. You've been dropping singles. It's very exciting. We talked a little bit about physical wellness. We talked a lot about recovery and our place with sobriety, starving the ego, feeding the soul, and all these big moves that you've been making over the last year, and this turn in Muncy 2.0, this hope and this positivity. And I just want to say I appreciate you coming on to talk again. I think this was a fantastic podcast episode as usual, you know?
Yeah, appreciate you having me, bro. It's always a pleasure.
Is there anything else you want to say to the listeners before you dip out?
Just keep doing the work, keep going, and stay true to you always, no matter what anyone says. That's what I got for you.
I appreciate it, man. It's inspirational as hell. So everybody go check out Muncy. He's on all the best listening social media platforms. I will be dropping links in all the descriptions. Give him a follow, a share, and a listen. Really appreciate everybody coming out to chill with us. And you guys have a good rest of your day. Stay up and feel free.